Welcome back to my channel. We are continuing the convenience color series with the PBK mixes. So all of these colors are going to be colors where PBK something is the first pigment in the mix. I have, I think, 10 of these in my palette. So they're not super popular, but they are something I have. And we're going to label the sheet and then get into it. So the sheet's all labeled, and I actually have more of these than I thought I did. So we are going to start with Holbein Payne's Gray, which is PBK6, PB15, and PR122. It is not my favorite Payne's Gray, as I don't really like PB15 as a color, but it is nice enough. I'm going to be switching to a larger brush, but for these little Holbein pans, this brush is pretty much the only size that works. Well, a size 2 or smaller. Daniel Smith Neutral Tint is PBK6, PV19, and PB15. I do quite like this mix. It is one of my favorites in my palette, and it has been for quite a long time. There's my size 6. There's my size 6. I'm going to use this for the bigger pans. Holbein Grape Gray is PBK6, PW6. Gray of Gray, specifically this one, gets used a lot. It's the only gray I have in my Holbein palette, and as you probably learned in the gray series, I don't love mixing grays. It's not my favorite color to mix for. I like mixing granulating ones, but like mixing a color like this, I don't enjoy. Cozmick Creations Little Bat, on the other hand, is one of my absolute favorite grays. It's a color that I helped formulate with Laura, and so it's no surprise I love it. I helped create it when she was trying to develop grays for the shop. It's a very sort of brown gray that I use a lot for single pan pieces, and it is PBK7, PB29. Rosa Gallery's Black Grape is probably my favorite color Rosa Galleries makes that I've tried. It's sort of like neutral tint except really purple, and it is PBK7, PV19, and PV3. Oh, I touched two. Fixed. Next we have Addison and Sedgwick's Chinchilla. This was part of her Cities of the World 4 palette, which is PBK7 and PBK11. It is one of my favorite blacks. It is probably the blackest black I've got in my palette. It is hard to find a watercolor black that is this opaque and dries so matte, but it is an absolutely fabulous black. Mijello Gray of Gray is PBK7, PW6, and PB60. I don't love it. It's more opaque than the Holbein version, I find, and I just don't use it a whole lot. I also don't love the Mijello formula. It's just not my favorite. I got 2 tubes just to try it, and I don't love it. After I swatched the entire palette without having the colors, a family member ended up purchasing the White Nights granulating palette for me. So I have been able to compare my swatches that I created just from a photo to the actual colors in the set. So we have PBK8 and PO64, which is White Nights Orange Mist. And it is not a color I think I'd ever actually use, except maybe in sunset pieces. Roman Small Payne's Gray is probably my least favorite Payne's Gray. It leans too indigo for me. It is PBK9, PB27, and PR264. It's just too indigo for me. The Prussian Blue, which is the PB27, I find too overpowering in the mix, and it just I'd prefer this, and that's coming from somebody that doesn't actually like Payne's Gray much. White Knight's Green Shadows is up next, which is PBK11 PG7. PBK11 is probably one of my favorite blacks. It is Lunar Black in Daniel Smith, and I use it all the time for mixing granulating colors because it gives you a super fun effect. White Knight's Dark Blue Shadows is PBK11 PB15.6, which is my preferred version of Phthalo Blue. I'm going to use it. It's going to be the 15.6 version if I can. Then we have Schmincke Galaxy Black, PBK11, PB29. We have White Knight's Shadow Violet, or Violet Shadows, which is PBK11, PV23, which is one of my favorite violet pigments. And granulates out quite nicely. And then we have Clogs, which is by Addison and Sedgwick, which is PBK11, PW18, PBK19, and PB29. I am always underwhelmed by Clogs. I think it should be more interesting for how many pigments it has in it. But that being said, it's still quite pretty. So we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to go through them all. Alright, so we're dry, and now we're going to go through this. So Holbein Payne's Gray I prefer over Bowman Small Payne's Gray. Daniel Smith Neutral Tint is great. I use Holbein Gray of Gray I prefer over the Mijello Gray of Gray. I find the Mijello one too opaque. Yes, it has a more interesting texture, but I find it really hard to water down into a sheer version that I actually use. Cozmick Creations Little Bat, one of my favorite grays, one of my go-to grays. I use it all the time. Definitely would keep around. Rosa Gallery's Black Grape, I quite like. Not a huge fan of the Rosa Gallery's formulation, but do really like this color. Addison and Sedgwick's Chinchilla, one of my favorite blacks. I don't know if she still has this color in the shop. It was part of a palette in 2022, so it's now 2024, so I don't know that she still has it around. But super great color. It would be quite hard to get something this dark by mixing it yourself. It might be possible. I haven't actually tried. The White Knight's colors, I prove that it is totally possible to mix them yourself. So as much as I really do like dark blue shadows and violet shadows, I would probably just get the individual signal pigments and create them yourself. And then Clogs, there are so many more other interesting grays. Schmincke Galaxy Black, same as the White Knight's colors. Like, it's a color you can mix for. It was pretty easy to mix for in the Schmincke series. And overall, like, it's only 2 pigments. So really, I think I would only be doing Holbein Payne's Gray, Daniel Smith Neutral Tint, Holbein Gray of Gray, Little Bat, Rosa Gallery's Black Grape, and Addison and Sedgwick's Chinchilla. The other stuff is fun to have, but not essentials. And really, it's like the more neutral stuff that I use most often. Whereas this stuff, as fun as it is to have, is totally mixable. They're just 2 pigments together, and it's pretty standard granulation patterns. So I hope you enjoyed watching what black mixes I have in my palette. Next up is browns, which should be exciting. I don't think I have that many. I think I've got like 7, so it'll be a short one. Thanks for watching, and let me know what your favorite black convenience colors in your palette are.